Good afternoon. Today for the our norm rules cataloging focused open call, I'm going to be sharing about the work that Melinda has been doing at Spokane. So she should definitely chime in uh, whenever possible uh, on tagging records for academic programs. So Melinda mentioned that she was doing this work, and I went in and kind of reverse instructioned this based on what I found uh in their environment. So there's probably some gaps, and there's definitely some like narrative that I would love for you to contribute. Um, so I think one of the things we kind of talked about when it came up was that the ability to like tag bibliographic fields with local information um, would make it so that analytics reports could be run on that information instead of relying on, trying to do reports for a department based on call number or subject headings, etc. It gives you really nice, clean circulation data. You can do age of collection based on specific titles. You can run those title lists, etc. So, were there other like uses or reasons for the tagging that you were kind of working off of, Melinda?
Yeah, so we started the tagging project mostly because we were having trouble. Let me preface this. Our school runs on program review. So every year, based on our liaison, right? Our liaison work goes through programs, and every 5 years, every program goes through program review. And communicating and having meaningful discussions about the library collection and collection development in the liaison areas was becoming more and more problematic. It's like, oh yeah, we have 45,000 books or whatever it is. That's meaningless to automotive. It's meaningless to aviation tech. It's not particularly meaningful to nursing, for example. So if we're talking about our programs, it's like, well, okay, how can we be more directed in involving our faculty in those areas in the work of collection development and being able to really communicate that to them. And so I hadn't really found a way. I also say we are a Dewey system, which also complicates things a little further because Dewey is not as clean maybe as some LC uh, call number functionalities. So that was another element that we were working with. I couldn't just run LC subject headings and make it work. So we came up with this idea probably 6 or 7 years ago now, actually, but it took me a really long time to get buy-in from my faculty to be willing to do the work. And so we came up with this idea of using the local parameters to tag the division, the program, and the department. Not every area has a department. So sometimes it's like the department is the same as the program itself, but we do have some divisions that are further subdivided. And so we have some that have a 903, which is why it's like large, small, medium as far as the divisions. But we started doing this for our physical collection specifically. It was also a way for us to, like, as you were saying, Carly, add look at data in terms of circulation and look at how large, what percentage of the collection it is. Having title lists to do really in-depth weeding and having conversations about titles with faculty in terms of what our physical collection looks like. We did run into issues, which I'm sure you'll probably get to, Carly, with trying to deal with our electronic collections, which is a whole other bag of worms.
Yeah, no, we don't have to touch on electronic collections today. Uh, because there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. And so, like I I hope that I broke it down in a pretty straightforward way, but I'm sure that figuring this all out certainly was a lot of work. So, one of the things that I did notice right off the bat is that in order to have the bibliographic fields pulled into analytics, you do need to reach out to Alma support to get that sorted out with them. So you'll want to know which fields, I'm assuming, you want brought in to which local parameter. Um, and then if you're not sure what's already being brought into analytics, here is the link for the shared dimensions with bibliographic details and analytics, which somehow I had never found before. And I was like, oh, this is wildly useful table. So it tells you exactly what the mapping is to the analytics field. So that's nice. I have favorited it for myself. Um, I'll share this document too so that you can take a look for yourself and check out those links. So that's kind of the first step. And then Melinda touched on determining that, like the hierarchy that they decided to use, starting with the large. And of course, your institution is going to make your, own choices based on your needs. And that's where buy-in and forethought will probably play a large role in how successful and sustainable the tagging is. If you're using analytics and have detail in funding, yeah, that controlled vocabulary. I'll just put a little if you use fund codes, you may also want to consider what from acquisitions is getting mapped into analytics and how your fund codes might play a role in some of this. However, I don't think anyone's doing super complex analytic or acquisition. So, and then it kind of gets into the the working with the norm rules. So I've got a couple of our general resource links up here so that if you want to review. And then I've got the text for the norm rules that Spokane has. And Melinda has it broken out into a rule for 901, a rule for 902, and a rule for 903. And I'm guessing that what you do is you edit this rule when you're going to do tagging for a specific program or division or department so that you're not cluttering up your shared rules with a million different ones for all the different divisions and programs.
Yeah, that's true. I change it every time I do. I'm planning on running a job and I do it just on the fly.
Yeah, and that, I mean, like that probably works for the collections of the sizes that our colleges have. And given the fact that no one has the time to go through and probably tag your entire physical collection in one go, you're going to be doing this pretty incrementally. So keeping your shared norm rules kind of cleaner so you can find what you're looking for is great. I also noticed that there is a remove the 901, 902, and 903 norm rule. So that if there is bibliographic information in any of those records, you might want to review what it is before you remove it. But there is that rule so you can clear out those fields on that set before you add anything.
It's also if you mess up something.
Yeah. I was going to let you not claim that. I assumed it was also for cleanup sometimes. Um, um, and then you can create your itemized title sets in managed sets however you kind of want to do that. The nice thing about making them itemized is you can go through and add a specific title. You can do the customized searches and kind of build that set on the fly. So if you're, you do a set of purchasing and you know that all of the titles you just purchased are, going to be for comm studies, then you can make that itemized set and have it there. And I'm going to go into Spokane and kind of show you guys all of this again. But I think it's useful to see the whole process and make sure that I figured it out correctly before we go into the screens. So then you create your normalization process. And so I've written down the instructions here, just because you will have 3 tasks in the task step. You'll have 3 marked rule normalization tasks that you will add, and then each one of those tasks will be set to one of the rules that you have edited and set up for the job that you're doing for the set that you've got. And then you run your normalization process. Now, again, I have made this all fit together, quite simply, I hope. However, I very much doubt that it came together this simply when you were developing it. And then in Final Fancy steps, as of this last fall, you can, instead of having it say local parameters in analytics, you can go into the configuration of analytics and set the analytics display local parameters to true. And then whatever you've given to Ex Libris as what is coming in is what will display, and you won't have to do any additional formula editing to make it display something else. So Melinda, if you want to kind of make any corrections or additions to this while I get logged in to show people the screens. How'd I do?
Excellent, excellent. You made it seem so simple. It's actually
Yeah.
not hard. Developing it was harder than actually doing it now.
Yeah, and I did a little analytics report to show you guys how many titles she's been able to process with this. So we'll start in the MDE so you can see what the rules look like. So she's got the 901, the 902. Oops, I skipped it. And the 903, and then the delete 03, 02, 01. And it's just under normalization rules, kept the title nice and tidy. So you've got that. Then under configuration and resources and cataloging, this is where you add normalization processes, and you add that through the profile type. So the Mark 21 and normalization processes, and then add process, and you can see the process that Melinda created. And she's done a good detailed description here, which was how I knew what they had mapped 901, 2, and 3 to. 3 tasks, and each one of the tasks is mapped to that separate rule. And then, so we're going to go back out, and I'll show you one of the sets. that she's created. So there's the CMST tagging. So this is one that she's working on. And so far she's got 136 titles in here. And you can add members through advanced search and whatever else. I think you can even upload an Excel file. So if you've like created a list of titles from an analytics report or something else, but it's a pretty basic manage set kind of function to create those titles. And now what like I think is just so cool is the level of information and the visualization that's possible with this tagging. So I just threw this one together. What did I even call it? I think I called it subject tagging. Nope. I hate it when I do this because I literally just made this.
Did you put Spokane's name in it? Maybe?
I don't think I did in the description, but not in the title. Tap, link, lost, overlap,
passed it.
overlap.
Passed
passed
it as local parameters.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I really should have made a note on that for myself. So anyway, okay. So I made this local parameters title count. And I kept it super, super basic. I also was just kind of curious. I wanted to get the most granular. So I could change this to local parameter 1 is not null, and we get them, but this really shows the depth of information on here. So I just did these 4 things. Obviously there's so much more that you could pull, and I created a pivot table where actually the department is the first one, but again, like you could make the so now we've got the division as the section, and then, well, here, I'll do it the not messy way. And now we've got the program and the department and the number of titles that have been tagged that way. Now, since obviously there are titles that are getting tagged with multiple programs, there are filtering things that you can do. There's bin stuff you can do, but I threw this together just to kind of show how like, so art, humanities got 3,000 titles tagged. Education, social sciences, but then we've got one education, music. But if we go down to music, 1,100 titles. So I'm guessing this was a lot of like very incremental work to get these thousands of titles tagged with the various things.
Can say honestly, that was not actually as hard. The thing with the double tag, so because that's a repeatable field, there are things that might apply to both accounting and marketing, or accounting and like DTA, the direct transfer, which is also business. So we put those in. That 902 is a repeat, all of those are repeatable fields. I mean, technically you can have something that applies to automotive, but might also apply to, you know, something else that the librarian who's in charge wants to maybe add. So there's like, oh, this instructor might have interest in this. We had it come up in like sociology and history. I had a big weed of history at one point, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can tag history, but then there are certain subjects like slavery that sociology might also be interested in terms of historical perspectives, for example. So that's why you'll have these multiple sections. I have not gotten, I'm still doing a lot of tagging, and so I've not gotten to do as much of the cleanup of reporting as I'd like to. But I'm hoping to get there where, you know, it's like, because it's going to depend on what order it's in. So if EDU and DTA are switched, DTA is gonna, you're gonna get two lines.
Yeah.
It's not in the same order, right? So there's some cleanup that I'm going to eventually do, but the fact that I can actually pull data at all is really nice. And the way that we were able to do that was that the liaison librarians, as programs go through program review, I'm having the librarians, like right now, communication studies just is now going through program review. So any back tagging that needs to be done for communication specifically, the librarian is going and giving me all of the call number ranges. That can be down to, you know, okay, I only want 396.1, and I only pull the books that are 396.1 and fall within that, and I tag all of those books. So I run a report of those and I tag those books and only those books. And so I have a table that I've worked on that has all of the controlled vocabulary on it for the cataloger, who's doing our cataloging, and all of the Dewey ranges for myself of what I've tagged, what I haven't tagged, what still has yet to be tagged.
Yeah. And I mean, like, and the thing is, Oracle is capable of doing some like field content filtering, for sure, that I just didn't feel like getting into right this afternoon. But yeah, I mean, like, this is so cool because now, you could take, you know, usage and look at number of loans and be like, wow, this program is not using any of the physical titles. And then you can look at the age of that collection and say, ah, well, it's because everything is 40 years old. You're like, there's so much very like cool data that can lead to better communication and decision making. So did I kind of get all okay? So I showed you guys the normalization process. I showed you the normalization rules. So the only like, so then if you wanted, you could go under here and change this to true. And then over here, it wouldn't come in as local param 02 and local param 03. But I don't know what it would come in under. Should we test it?
I think it's actually possible for you to go in and change those. I mean, if you go in and do custom headings on the,
Oh yeah, you can do that
go
too.
do that anyway. So
Let's go back out here and save. And I'm just gonna like it. Oh, it might take overnight to pull them in. So it'll be curious. But if you did want to, it's always, you can always do edit formula, custom heading. And for this one, you can say, what is it? This one's division. And this one is so it's easy enough to change it once you've built a report. I think what's nice if you have them come in is down here, in the bibliographic details menu, these fields, instead of just saying 1, 2, 3, may say something different tomorrow. I guess we'll see. So now we have this nice little dealy bopper. And you can do a cool thing with bins if you wanted to. And yeah, so anyway, it's a really phenomenal idea. And it would be cool to be able to kind of share, I think, some of the tagging criteria, like why certain books are comm studies or sociology. But, a lot of that is going to come down to the programs that your college has, to your faculty purchasing habits as well. So unfortunately, like as nice as it would be, I think, but there are resources all over the internet, not just Library of Congress subject headings on, like books in certain subject areas, keywords, or, you know, whatever. So even if you didn't have invested faculty, I think you could do this at a high level, or like kind of a superficial level, if you were particularly interested in a niche topic, or if your college was looking at a new program and wanted to know what the library might already have. You could probably work on creating itemized lists and tagging them, and kind of getting data about those titles. So yeah, it's very cool. When it comes to the electronic resources, it's there's just different bibliographic information for portfolios and titles, and it gets so messy. However, I did work on a little electronic collection. Oh, I need to get out of configuration. Um, where's a little electronic collection. And so that was over here. No, where's the sub? There we go. So just kind of trying out electronic law journals. I made a set, and it's a logical set, so it'll get updated. And I made it for available portfolios with the material type of journal, and then had to do some really interesting, like, Boolean ordering as I played around with it. And I'm sure there was actually a better way to do it, but the day that I did this, I was not there. So these are ones where the keyword includes either law, legal, or judicial. And so we got, over 2,000, because I know that there's a fairly good criminal justice program. So I was like, that's one to start with. And so I just created that logical set from eJournals, and it's a pretty decent sized set, and it's another way to kind of show people what's available. It won't give you the same, data as the tagging project. But again, if you're looking at highlighting some particular niche content, or need to share what exists in a user-friendly way. Sharing a collection that's, that UI is nice and clean and like fancy with its, what is the journal cover images and what have you, or book cover images, could be kind of useful for showing administration or faculty what you've got. So yeah, so I did that little thing, but not and the set that I based it on, where is it? Yeah, I can, I can update this, or I can filter it, like any other set. I don't know what bibliographic fields. So, like you could say, okay, I'm going to look at this record and I do want to add a 901 to this journal record. But is this a CZ record? I don't really understand how all that works.
So that was one of the challenges when I was looking at, because obviously we have a lot more e-resources than we do physical resources. And so when I created the analytics report that I did, it was just kind of a conversation starter and it pulled from the subject headings, where you could look something up by the subject heading. And when I did like business, for example, I did an example pull of information for marketing, one for entrepreneurship, one for oh goodness, accounting, that kind of thing. So I had it divided into sections to give them some examples. But because I don't really have, other than, if I'm going to buy a whole new database, I don't necessarily have control over those collections anyway. So it's not like I could say, oh, you can get rid of that one title. I'm not going to get rid of the one title because it's part of like the EBSCO collection, right? But it does allow me to say, hey, this is what we have. And if we have sushi reporting, depending on the depth, which we do have sushi reporting, but I don't think we're pulling in all of the data. But theoretically, I might be able to add into that reporting, hey, how much those are getting used or looked at. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I am working on my own little project of how to create like counter API calls into a neutral platform, because the list of like sushi approved Alma vendors is not all inclusive. And especially for special libraries and community colleges who may work with like other smaller vendors, there's a lot more vendors that you can do API calls for counter. They're just not sushi protocol approved, so they're not set up. So I'm trying to figure out, which is the whole adventure in software and programming, but I'm trying to figure out how to develop a neutral platform call and then into Microsoft Access, rather than like Power BI, which not everyone would have a subscription to, because this is something that like Lyrasis is very interested in, having like someone with that knowledge speak. I could see it being useful at eLuna or any number of conferences, and for a consortium like ours that does not have a network zone, for me to be able to pull in everybody's usage and tag it by institution and like look at the state as a whole would just be, I mean, like, what a tool. Um, but I mean, that I'm starting from scratch on the knowledge of that thing. So, it's an idea. But yeah, so anyway, the write-up is in our open call folder with these instructions. And if you go into Carly's test folder in analytics, you can see, well, it won't pull Spokane stuff, but you could see if any of your records have a 903 or a 902 or a 901 field.
Yeah, a lot of, yeah, you almost have to get rid of, there's certain, you have to get rid of your e-records because, you have to make sure that in your reporting, you have to get rid of it because it pulls a lot of extraneous data that comes through sometimes,
Uh,
which is weird, but I've had to go in and clean up some stuff. It was weird
uh,
stuff in the 901s.
Interesting. So yeah, any other questions for Melinda? Probably because she's the one that's been doing this. Got a small but expert group here today, I see.
It's pretty
All right.
straightforward.
Oh, dogs. Yeah, I mean, the process is straightforward in Alma, creating the controlled vocabulary and getting the buy-in. But, you know, I always am like, well, can you apply it in this really niche way that no one is going to complain about and then think it's really cool and then you can expand on it.
Exactly.
So
We're just tagging all of our new stuff as it comes in, you know, as we buy stuff, basically we're only buying pretty much for programs anyway. We're not really just buying random stuff. So if it doesn't have some sort of curricular approach or connection, we're probably not getting it. So,
so your liaison librarians are able to like,
yeah,
the-
through the acquisition process, we tag as they come in for new stuff, and then the old stuff, it's just going back and tagging the current collection. And so as soon as we get through all of the various different programs, we can look at, hey, what isn't tagged, and do we still need it?
right? Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.